A fair point, I think, that has to be acknowledged is that we are taking steps to deal with an issue that you rightly identified is of concern to the British people. This is tough legislation, probably the toughest anti-immigration legislation ever introduced. These are pretty tough steps that we're taking on both legal and illegal migration. Illegal migration, migrants.
The Secretary of State for Levelling Up, that's Levelling Up, spends almost his entire interview talking about anti-immigration legislation, and then hops over to BBC One where the same conversation continues.
The legislation makes sure that people can be deported.
But what isn't raised with viewers or discussed with the Levelling Up Secretary is the fact that social mobility in this country is now at its worst in over 50 years. That never in living memory have families got so much poorer over a single parliament. That just this week the UK was ranked by UNICEF, that's the United Nations Children's Fund, as the worst among the world's richest countries in child poverty levels. That according to the government's own statistics, there were 4.2 million children living in poverty in the UK in 2021-22. That's a staggering 1 in 3 children. And no mention of a major new report from the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, which has just found 1 million children in the UK experienced horrifying levels of destitution in 2022. That is the most extreme level of poverty, with families unable to meet their most basic needs of keeping warm, dry, clean and fed. Just think about that. 1 million children now living in destitute homes, an 88% rise since 2019. Instead, all we got was this.
The legislation makes sure that people can be deported.
The Levelling Up Secretary and viewers were not told that the number of children in food poverty has actually doubled in the last year. That the number of people living in relative poverty has actually increased by 900,000 since 2010. That's almost 1 million. That a staggering 14 million people are now living in poverty. 14 million. 1 million adults can't afford to eat every day. Millions now using food banks and going without heating. Instead, all we got was this.
Anti-immigration legislation.
We've got GPs prescribing nutritional drinks to starving patients, thousands being hospitalised with malnutrition. The number of people experiencing destitution in the UK has more than doubled in the last 5 years. It's more than doubled. Let's start holding this government to account on the issues that really matter to the people in this country.